officially, good morning, everybody, and really welcome to Cars on Carpet, second edition. So the first time we did this is just about a year ago, actually, and we thought it's definitely something we'd like to do again. So what we have today is really a couple of different things, and I think there's something for everybody. You know, maybe you want to get started with that sort of hobby. We might give you some ideas on, how to get started. If you're already doing it, there's maybe new ideas we can give you as well of things that may be helpful. And so we have a bunch of different speakers here today. Essentially, I'll be introducing them as we approach their sections, just to give you some context as well. So what we're going to be covering is really, first up with John, is Collector's Corner, all about, how to display your cars, the lighting, how to choose a theme, these type of things. Augusto is going to talk a lot about then, painting, detailing, weathering, the ideal workspace setup. Robert is a special guest, and again, I'll introduce him later on as well, from Germany. He's not a PCI member. I'll share the full story, how we got to meet him, in a moment. And he has a fairly impressive collection of 1/87 scale model cars, and you'd be surprised how valuable some of these actually are. And then David also, he is collecting a wide range of different model cars, also customizing some of them and also building some of these kits. And I'm going to be talking about how to build a model of your own car, if anybody's keen to do that. Hopefully we can give you a couple of ideas. We'll try to keep about 15 minutes per presentation, maybe one or two questions, and then do a larger Q&A at the end, if that's okay. And I hope everybody can hear me okay and it's all good. Great. So let me introduce John. So when we did the first Cars on Carpet a year ago, John invited a couple of us over to see his amazing collection. And I was really impressed to see, how he has his themes and the lighting. I feel like I really could do a lot better, actually. I haven't really thought about lighting before I've seen what he's done. And it was really impressive to see that, actually. And he's also got a really nice newsletter as well, which we'll talk about, which you can also subscribe to, just to catch up on the latest and greatest on scale model cars. And with that, I'll hand it over to John.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks very much, Wolfgang, for putting all this together. I've been collecting model cars for quite a few years. Built up a nice collection, mainly 143 and 118. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about having a theme. There's such a range available. It's important. I meet a lot of guys who have models tucked away in the attic. So display your models, a little bit of model care, and then lighting, and then Collector's Corner, which is a newsletter, which it was a COVID project, more or less, that I started in 2020. And we'll talk a little bit about it later on. Having a theme, I suppose, like everybody who's listening here, everybody has a few Porsches. I have a shelf or two of Porsches sitting around. There's such a range of models available. It's helpful to have a theme, whatever that is. Decide on your scale, and then take, of course, cost into consideration as well. I'm a Jackie Stewart fan. You can see there, I have a couple of 118s and a couple of 143 models. Displaying them on a little shelf, and sometimes it's helpful to put a little bit of background, a few photographs, or something to highlight the model. Rally cars is another part of quite a collection of rally cars. 118, that photograph there is mostly 118. I have quite a few 143 as well. On the next slide, you'll see a few more Irish rally cars on the top left-hand corner. There's quite a range available. It can be a little bit expensive, but it's nice to have some local stars. Michael Schumacher, of course, very collectible. Again, a display of 143, and you have all the scales there on the top shelf. The large one is 118, then you have a 124 on the right hand side, 143, and then the smaller one, 180 and 187. I have quite a few red cars. I don't want to mention the name, just in case I'd insult anybody, but turning to cost, there's models there to suit every pocket. The top left-hand corner is 1/18 scale CMR. It's about €50. The one on the right is about €200 GP replicas. big difference in the detail in each one. You can see on the right hand side there's an engine detail, there's a lovely cockpit detail, whereas the one on the left is basic, but they're both very acceptable models. On the 3 Formula 1 cars, Spark and Mini Champ are the main manufacturers there in 143 scale, but they're getting quite expensive. The Alfa Romeo on the left is about €60, but the current releases are approaching €100, which is very dear. The red one in the middle, that's Sparago, it's a tenner. It's very good value. Now, if you compare the detail isn't the same naturally enough, not at a tenner, but it's still not bad at that level. Again, going back to my theme of Jackie Stewart, that's a very detailed model. Exoto is an expensive enough brand, but there's fantastic detail. If you look at the engine detail there, you can see the plug leads. It's in great detail, but it is a rather expensive model. On the next slide, another example of to suit your pocket. Top Marks, very detailed model, about €200. The Solida one on the other side, a very acceptable model at €40. Both Subarus. So again, depending on what you want to display, like a lot of models are in a cabinet, you're not going to be opening doors or engines. Do you need all that detail? So shop according to your pocket almost. On the next slide, I meet a lot of collectors and they tell me they have loads of models in the attic, loads of models in the garage and boxes. Put them on display. You spend the money, just put your models on display. Our little Lamborghini is in a nice Perspex box display case. That's about €20 for that one, but it has 4 little spotlights on it. You can get a plain Perspex display case for around a tenner or even less. The one on the right is a little coffee table display. You can get the display box in IKEA. The cabinet on the right hand side is just an ordinary china cabinet with a few extra shelves put into it. There's about 300 models in that case, and the lighting and glass shelving is better almost, because it allows the light to go through and it displays better. And sometimes you can see on the mahogany shelving, it's sometimes better to put a cardboard, or in Eason's, for example, you have artist card, and it makes a nice base for models, and it shows them off a little bit better than just an ordinary timber base. On the next slide, the one on the right is just a bookcase. Again, there's a middle shelf has a lot of Porsches on it and then sports cars, but it's just a bookcase. Put a glass front on it, more glass shelves, and again, there's about 300 models in that case. The one on the left, I won't mention the brand name there in case I insult anybody again, but all red cars. It's a bespoke cabinet that I got made, and below it you can see there's a sort of a dome display case, which is an old piece of furniture out of a pharmacy shop, picked up in a second-hand furniture shop. Great display case, and it's certainly worth having. On the next one, model care. Dust is the big enemy. There's loads of cabinets for sale, but just be careful what you buy. IKEA have a great range of cabinets, but a lot of them, there's a big door gap, and dust, unless you want to be dusting your models every month or so, I focus on trying to keep the dust out. There's a little rubber draft excluder you can just put along the door. Sometimes that's a good idea to keep the dust out. Keep sunshine away from your models as well. I use a little soft paintbrush or a photographer's brush to keep them clean. If I'm handling models, I will sometimes wear cotton gloves, because you could find in a couple of years there's a mark on your paintwork because there was something on your hands at the time. Big issue on model boxes. Do you keep them or do you dump them? From a value point of view, the model with the box is worth a lot more. than just a loose model. And so my attic is full of boxes of boxes. So it can be a big storage problem. So just be careful there. I also keep a record of what I buy, because as you mature, you might forget what you bought, especially when you're visiting auto jumbles, etc. So it's no harm to keep a little record, and also maybe put a note on the bottom of the model what it is, because sometimes you'll forget what the year is. Or next one on lighting. I'm not an electrician, but lighting does really help, and there's a great range there. Safety first, of course, get good quality, low energy lighting. You have strip lighting, little spots, or sometimes from the ceiling. If you look at my photograph there, I can put a ceiling light on with a remote control and knock it off, as the case may be. It's a very easy way of lighting up a model. Remember as well, strip lighting can be very sore on the eyes, so just be careful where you put it on the shelf. Try and hide it if you can. If you have a mirror in the background, just remember it'll reflect out again. So try and keep that in mind. The two photographs on the bottom, it's the same photograph, but just you would think on the left-hand side that the shelving distance there between the shelves is 4 inches, and you think it's too much. But if you look on the right-hand side photograph, that's a standing position looking down on the model, and the spacing is just perfect. So just keep that in mind when you're spacing your shelves, taking the view into consideration. Collector's Corner, that's another little COVID project that I started in the middle of 2020. Wasn't going anywhere, so it's a free newsletter by email to anybody who wants one. If anybody wants a copy of it, just send me an email to collectorscornercc@gmail.com. It's my ramblings really on collecting models, visiting model collections, concentrating mainly on models, as I say, but a little bit on books and maybe calendars, whatever else you might have in your den. Automobilia, really. Like, I think we're all the same. A lot of guys that I know, they have classic cars, they have a few models, they have a few pictures, and we all sort of talk the same language. That's really all I have to say. Thanks for listening to my ramblings. As I say, if you want a copy of the newsletter, I just have the next one ready to go next week, so I'll send it to anybody who wants it. If anybody wants to see the collection here, as Wolfgang said, I sometimes operate in the cars, coffee in the garage, and we'll have a few guys over and they can have a look. This is not a problem. Thanks for listening, and thanks, Wolfgang, again for putting this all together.
Thank you so much, John. We can take 1 or 2 questions if anybody has a question for John. Okay, great. So we'll move on. Well, let me introduce Augusto. I think probably the club members all know him. He's been our motorsport officer, and I've been really inspired by the kind of work he does. So when I started scale modeling as a boy, I used to build loads of planes specifically, actually, and he builds amazing planes. And clearly I was nowhere near where he is, especially with the paint and the weathering and the detailing that he does. I think it's second to none. So with that, I'll hand it over to Augusto.
Thank you, Wolfgang. And thank you for putting this together. I think it's a very nice space away from our true passion. But yeah, I take this as an invitation of joining a new hobby. If and my lines and my contact details are open if you have questions or you want to ask me something afterwards. And of course, feel free to ask questions while I'm doing the presentation. So it's just a few slides about why, about how to set up yourself, how to start from zero, and we all do that at some stage, and why to build, and why you should keep doing it, and when you should stop. So if you go ahead, Wolfgang. So why we do this? Basically, it hasn't changed. it hasn't been influenced by technologies and IT and hackers and all of that stuff, because it's just putting bits of plastic together and had a little bit of paint on top of it. So it's been the same since for forever. So it's basically the same. Once you start, you just keep building, and you're going to improve your skills. So one of the best let's say features that the hobby has is that's great for your mental health. It doesn't matter what time in your life you are, but once you start building and you are in any stage of your build, and you're focusing to something, and your problems, I'm not going to say that they go away, but your mind is into something. So is very helpful, and it helped me a lot in terms of I was doing beautiful stuff during COVID, and it was keeping my mind away from all the shit situations and problems was happening at the same time. Another good feature is that you can see these glasses here, and those, your skills decline, your eyesight decline, and your detail and emotion decline. So if you don't work those out, if you don't use them, if you don't exercise them, those skills will decline, like everything in life. So with this modeling, some of those skills, you are going to stop that declining, or at least reduce that decline curve. In terms of the way we think, it helps you to structure a little bit better how you think. First, you need to understand instructions and follow them, but at the same time, you very quickly get a good grasp of how to tackle situations ahead, in advance. So every time you're following instructions in a model, there is a challenge there, and it's up to you to overcome that challenge with the tools that you have and with the resources that you have. So it's very helpful for that, for improving that way of thinking. And the skills, the new ones, nobody is born with these skills. Some people is very gifted. I am not one of those. I've learned by experience. So the more I build, the more I try, the more I learn, basically. So you go online, you look for a way to do something, you do it, you try it, you do three times, and then you master the skill. So you are learning a lot, and you're getting new skills. And the problem solving techniques is just another pro in the hobby. You will face situations in which you probably don't have the tool, you probably don't have the right color, you probably a part went to the carpet and is lost. So you have to overcome those. Usually you'll find a way to do it with the resources that you have that usually are limited. But it helps you to think in a way that you can resolve the problem and you can keep going. So in that way is very positive as well. And finally is a big reward once you know at the end of the model, you get a great reward, of course, but every time you finish a piece or a sub-assembly, you get that reward. You're like, oh yes, this is looking good, or this looks like the real one, or you get that feeling of accomplishment. You see in the picture in the middle that those only are the ejection seats and the cockpits. So once you finish that, you get that feeling that some part of the plane is done and dusted and it's looking the way you want it. So you get that, and you get that with every sub assembly. It's very rewarding. It's not that it happens at the end when you finish. It happens constantly. And finally, there is a very interesting social aspect. People wants to believe, or usually believes, that you are on your own, you are in your desk, and it's a very let's say focused enterprise. And it is at some stage. I mean, the social aspect is that you end up talking to people about how to tackle a situation, or you want to start a new technique and try it. you want to get some advice in advance. So there are forums for this, there are local internationals. You end up making friends and people in places that you don't even wonder about, and people is very open, and there is a lot of knowledge of that. Most or some people get a good from the mental health issues, or from the mental health focus. So people is very open to you, to help you, and to share your achievements as well. So there is a huge community in behind. There are competitions as well. If you want to compete, if you have that in you, you can bring your models, you can join clubs, and all of that. So that part is very important as well. So if we go to the next one, please. Thank you. So let's say you are interested, and you can go through the pictures. Yeah. Well, yeah, thanks. So let's say you're interested and you want to start. So my first point of advice would be, just set up yourself at home. It's not gonna work if you want to start doing your models in the kitchen table and you need to move everything away every single time somebody's gonna have dinner or breakfast or whatever. So I would say, like as a John, he was making a very good point in terms of, you have to show your models. In this case, the message that I want to convey to you is, you need to find a space. Rome wasn't built in one day, so you start a model, it will take time, and it will take all the time you want to invest on it. But obviously you're not going to finish in one go. So you need a space in which you can lay down your tools, you can lay down your paints, you can leave the model there, and the cat is not going to start playing with it, or your kids are not going to start playing with the little bits and pieces. So and you're going to be comfortable, and everything's going to be there for you. So it gets frustrating if you're doing something and you need to go to the third floor to get a couple of pliers, and then get down again, and then you forgot a brush, so you have to go back again. So just find the space, and once you start, it will just grow around you. So but find that space. That would be my main point here. And then let's say you are happy with the space that you have, and then you're in front of the question of, okay, what to do. So I would say, keep it simple first, and then keep it interesting for you. At the end, yes, it's a very individual, let's say, way of putting things together. Yes, it is, but it has to be interesting for you, because you are making them, building the models because of the things that you like. You are not building the models to show others, let's say. Well, it could be, but that wouldn't be my reason. My reason is, pick something that you're really interested in. For me, it's fast jets, but it could be anything. Cars, we all love cars, plane, train, ships, whatever it is. Just find them and go to it, because that reward feeling that you get by building it, you get it because you're building something that you love and you are interested in. If, let's say, if somebody asked me, could you please build me a submarine? I'll say, well, I can, but it's gonna be like, I'll probably do it, but it's not gonna be something that is gonna blow my mind anyway. So, but if you start with something that you like, you're gonna stick to it, and you're gonna be enjoying yourself. The second is your pocket. You need to take that into account, and as well as, there is no need to start building very expensive models from the get-go. You need to start from the basics and start from the cheapest, because you start putting them together, and then, let's say, if you're interested in a car in particular, that same car, you can, John was explaining in the model collection as well, you can get the same car cheaper or ultra expensive. It's the same with the kits. So I will say, you start with the cheapest, polish your techniques, and improve your skills, and then you can revisit that same model by building something a little bit more expensive. But from the start, just go with the basic, and hopefully the most value from the value perspective model that you can get. And the other one is, some of us we are born with a chip that we don't like to read instructions. We just want to go straight to the kill. And unfortunately with this, you learn in a very bad way that you need to follow the instructions. There is a way to build a model, and it helps you to improve your thinking and problem solving techniques. So it is starting by following them. It's basic. You cannot make things complicated. So it's about cutting and putting together. Then you can add layers of not complications, but detailing. But from the get-go, just make sure that you're putting a piece together and you're following the instructions, and that's about it. So let's say that you are interested in cars, let's say, because you love minis, like a friend of mine here in this presentation. So he is into minis, he wants to build minis. So now which size? So in terms of the scale, you need to take into account a couple of things. That's a very interesting picture there. So you have two scales, one 144, the small one, and the other one is 118. So the small one has fewer pieces, the big one has more pieces. So the scale of the difficulty is not related with the amount of pieces. Usually, and thankfully, the model makers tells you what is the difficulty in their models. So go for that. Now, go for the things that you can handle better, because from the start, your skills are what they are. Maybe your small motion skills are very good, so you can handle the really small pieces, and your eyesight is great, so you can go for really small stuff. But then if it's that not the case, I would say probably 172 is your best friend, because it's a middle range and pieces are not too tiny or not too big. Because if you go for the 132, let's say, or 118, then yes, you have bigger pieces, but you have more pieces to build and to put together. And so it's finding that balance between size, amount of parts, and difficulty. So I will suggest just to start and check the box and check the level of difficulty, and go for the first one or two, and take into account how good is your eyesight and how good is your motion skills for those small pieces. And in terms of tools, there is no need to start buying tools like a madman. I mean, as I said, it's starting from scratch. You get a set of pliers, you get good glue, and you get like a few paints and a brush, and you start from them and keep going. Once you keep building models, you start needing stuff. So my advice would be, buy the tools that you need when you reach the points that you need them, not before. Because you do that before, you're gonna end up with a lot of stuff that you don't use, and that's just throwing the money down the toilet. Unless you want to collect tools, that's a different scenario. But I wouldn't suggest you to do that. So you go for the next one. So thanks, Wolfen. So let's say you build your first one, your second one. You need to keep that. You need to have your workspace with something in it, even if you don't have time, even if you don't think that is the best time to do it. Just put something on top of the desk, and it's gonna be waiting for you. It's not gonna go anywhere. So you can do 1 to 2 pieces and keep going. And once you start doing it, it's just great. My thing is not cars, but I saw these kids for peanuts one day, and it's a red car. I'm gonna say names again, following John's advice. And to my surprise, it brought me the same rewards that it gets me. I love Formula One, of course, but it was my first attempt to build a car, and in fairness, it blew my mind. So the point that I'm trying to make here is, you need to keep going. You need to keep building and keep the work flowing, and because if you don't, your interest will vanish little by little. So, but if you have something there waiting for you on the bench, you just will add a little bit of time here and there, and you can see the progress. So just keep going. Keep the momentum. That's what I would say. Yeah. So that's the finished product there. It's just unreal. You start putting the pieces. Obviously, you feel at least I was feeling more connected, because it was putting things that I saw on television, that you can actually hear the car sound when you finish, and all of that stuff in your mind, of course. So it was on the outfield for me. I never built car before, and now I have 3 or 4 boxes waiting for me at the moment to do that, and I can't wait. Some of the Porsches, actually. So when to stop buying kits? That's a very good question. It depends on who's listening. If we have wives around or partners around, it's better not to let them access to this. I would say never stop buying kits. You just need to find yourself a good space at home that you can throw a towel on top of it, and nobody will know what's going on, what's behind. But you just if you keep your interest, if you see something that you like and you're walking by the store, just get it and put it there. It's gonna be waiting for you. So go for it. Yeah. Yeah. So there's a few pictures of what you can achieve with time, different shades, weathering, as you know. Every subcomponent has a different color, different tones in the same component, and it's just layers that you can add, and you can achieve that only by building stuff. My first planes were one tone everywhere, and then you can add the layers as you get more familiarized with the techniques and the use of the paints and the tools that you have. But it's a curve, and you get the same reward whether it's at the beginning or at the end. But it's about finishing the models, and if you keep going, please, Wolfgang. It's about putting them together, getting them in shape, and at the end show them. So you can see in my background, I have my planes there, and again, I build it for me. You show the pictures, you share the pictures with your friends, you go to forums, you can join clubs as well, and the feedback is amazing. So that's the few boxes that I have on a secret location here at home. It's not displayed like that. I just put it like that for the picture today, but it's usually away from freaking eyes. And I have this Porsche that I cannot wait for put together, very famous one. And you just keep going. You keep building stuff. Some people will give you stuff for free, which is great. And you will forever be grateful with them. And it's all about the experience of going through the whole process. Since you open the box up until you put your model in the cabinet, is, at least for me, it brings a lot of pros and a lot of happiness, and it puts your mind into something else that is going to keep your focus, and it's going to help you from the mental health side of thinking of what's going on, or what is worrying you, or whatever it is in your mind. I can guarantee you that it's going to be away for a few minutes or a few hours when you're sitting in the bench and working for it. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Augusto. Do we have maybe 1 or 2 questions for Augusto?
Hey, Augusto, Adele. I have one. What's the most complex car model you ever made?
Well, Adele, I think probably this 917 that I'm going to start building now, I think that's going to be the most complex one. I was very happy when I was building that Ferrari. That was my first car model. I'm more into jets. And talking about Cold War up to now. So what I really like about building that Formula One is that it was simple, but it has a lot of details that you can add to it. So it was a fewer amount of pieces, but you can add layers of not complexity, but colors and textures to it, and you can display it with the engine cover or with the engine cover in and off, on and off. And it will show you a lot of details. But in terms of complexity, maybe that 917 it has, I don't know how many pieces, but it's probably 2-3 times the amount of pieces that the Ferrari had. And that's why I did the Ferrari, because I started with something that it was low on the skill set level. And I was very happy because you can get frustrated. If I would have started with this one, I would probably get frustrated from the get-go, because that car has a tubular chassis and a space frame one, and you have to put it together from scratch. So you have to cut all the pieces and put them together. So if you are starting in this kind of builds, you want to start from something basic rather than something very complicated from the get-go. But yeah, I would say that's 917 right there. Yeah,
that's good. Thanks. Beautiful car, 917. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Augusto. All right, well, let me introduce the next speaker. So he's a special guest. He's dialed in from Germany. How did we get to meet Robert? So we've deployed our fellow committee member, Garrett, to Gran Canaria, where the poor man had to live for 6 months. And we sent him there to find fellow Porsche people. And he found Robert, who, as I understand, earned several 964s through the years. And what particularly struck me was his impressive scale model collection that he's going to be talking about in a moment. And as you can see, he's got so many of them. He actually then decided to move out of his apartment and move in with his girlfriend because the cars took up so much space. So he's definitely one of us. So with that, I'll hand it over to Robert.
Thank you. Thank you for your invitation and to have the possibility to show you something about what's going on in Germany. I'm coming originally from Berlin. And there was a company called Viking that was the first producer of model cars in the late 50s. They had a scale, the so-called H0 scale, that was a good relation to McLean model railroads, and they fitted to these model railroads on the layouts as like houses and cars, but they were also used for traffic education in the early 50s or in the 50s. These tiny model cars where Viking had a quasi monopole in the scale up until 1975, because it was only used for children to play, to have it in a box and to build cities and so on. And in the late, something like 1975, the topic changed, the topic of the market changed, because people started to collect these cars. Not only to play with these cars, but to collect them. And at that moment, prices started to rise, and other players in the market who are also active up until now, like Brikina, Euromodell, Herpa, and Minichems, they produced also Porsche cars. Since these 1970s, there are a lot of swap meets in Germany and international as well as also in Netherlands, Switzerland, and Austria. There were several clubs formed. I was a member of one of the clubs, the Club der H0 Automodellfreunde, that was founded in Berlin in 1975. They started with something like 50 people, 100 people, and 2 years later they had 2,000. Really crazy. and that also in the time of no internet. There was the community grew up through swap meets and through newsletters, through journals that were sent monthly with the news in the shops. And so they started a big scene that is also very active up until today. What you can see are my favorite, most valuable cars behind that are in my vitrine here, mainly Viking. And the point is that if people start to collect, they want to get them all. Okay, there were normal production, or there was a normal production of cars, for instance, in the colors white and black. But some rare possibilities, or at some points, they were produced also in other cars. Collectors start to look for these cars with rising prices. Next, please. So what you can see on the right-hand side is one of my cupboards with the cars. Each car is it is made to topics, to brands. Like you see, my one of my Porsche trays, and you see also Volkswagen and Ford and Opel trays and so on. These are models from different brands like Herpa, Euromodel, mainly also cars from Spain, from France. You know, you can do with this hobby two different things. You can collect them like I'm doing, or you can customize it to build cars, to build up cars that are not available in the shops. But I'm more a collector, as you can see. To the point, in the early 50s, Viking produced the model cars without windows because the technology was not so far. The technology with to use plastic mold production was invented for model cars and as well for planes during the early 40s. As you can see, these cars are without windows, but they are very accurate. They were very in the same scale, so that they fitted together with the trucks and with the buses and so on. Everything was made in the same scale. That was different to what Matchbox did, because before, as I said before, it was also made for traffic education. On the left-hand side photograph, you see some silver models up until 1984, I guess. The catalogs were made also only in black and white, and so they produced only a very tiny number of cars in silver to have the best possibility to or the best effect for the photos. And these cars are expensive as well because they weren't sold. They were only produced for photograph purposes, and then yeah, you have to have a contact to Viking personnel to get these cars. And so so these cars, the car prices depend from the color, from the shape, because in the life of a car, they made also they changed the cars. For instance, that they made more details during the production process. They put on different imprints, especially truck models are they had promotion. They produced in the 60s and 70s promotion models for logistic companies, for instance, for Hapag-Lloyd and so on. where they use it as a present for the kids of their customers. And also these cars are very expensive because you couldn't buy them. You had to get a contact. You should have a contact to these companies. And I myself, I wrote in the 70s. I wrote letters to Hapag-Lloyd and to the Berliner Stadtreinigung and to some companies where I knew that they had these promotion models, and sometimes I got it, but mostly I got a nice letter that there's nothing available. So no. And what's expensive as well are prototypes, models that were created during the production and finishing and finalizing process. That's also only have a very little number of produced cars. Next, please. And so it's not only eBay or in German Hood where you can buy model cars. It's also there are some special auctioneers who are who specialized on model trains and also on Viking. And one of these is, or the biggest one is the Auktionshaus Saure. It's a guy called Carsten Sauer. I know him from the early 80s when he lived here in Frankfurt and collected cars as well. And as he saw that he wanted to, he collected cars and he sold them again, and often it was too cheap when he sold it, because another guy came and wanted to buy this car and it was sold. So he began to run in 1996 with his own auction house, and he's very famous in Germany for the accuracy of the items and for that everything's happening fine. And about prices, you can buy models that everybody has for €1. You can spend as well something like this car. It's a Porsche 356. It's built in, made in around 1961, in a very, very rare color. I have no item of this myself. Brown metallic. It reached €3,500, and you have to count for additional 20% tax or 20% tax for the auctioneer. So it comes to something like 4,200 euro. The most expensive car is not a Porsche in this collection. It is a Thyssen tank truck, where people bought up until, I think the biggest offer was 12,100 euro plus tax. It's something like 20 centimeters of plastic. So people are going crazy, but they can afford it because these people who buy it are 50 to 60 or 50 to 70 of age. It's their youth that they want to run something like. They look for the cars which them played in their youth, and they start to collect it, and it's a big community here in Germany. And these guys who were born in the 50s and 60s, now they're of age. In the end of their labor life, or starting as pensioner, the kids are out of home. What to do? Collecting. And some pensioners, what I saw, I thought a lot of pensioners start with, oh, I have a lot of time and can start with my collections. But some other people, they started with in the age of 65, they started to clear their life. They sold it. They said, no, it's too much. Maybe I will die tomorrow. I want to clear up my life and to and of course I have less money available than before during work time, so it's different. But I know some guys who are more than 80, 85 who are really running their collections and are very, very active. And this leads to a market that is where you can buy sometimes very cheap because inheritance available with sometimes very interesting model cars, where prototypes or whatever, inheritances of people who once worked in the late 50s or in the 50s for Viking as home worker. And sometimes these collections or these inheritance were given away for very little money. But sometimes they see the possibilities and they sell it through eBay. And sometimes I think they wonder that some of these old cars reach suddenly 1,000 or 2,000 euro or 5,000 euro in eBay as eBay collection. On the other hand, the number of people collecting these cars is declining because there are no younger people coming to it, because you're working usually as in age of 20 or 30, you're running with a computer and so on. You're not collecting this stuff anymore. So anytime I guess we all will move out with our models into the eternal flame. No one interests anymore for it. So on the long term, I guess the prices will fall, or the prices are falling for normal cars, and the prices are rising for the special. Yeah. So as I'm also acting in eBay and in Hood in Germany, and try to finance my collection. I sell them also cars, mainly 1 to 87. I have some possibilities, or I had some possibilities to buy cheap models in 1 to 43 from Porsche direct. These are on my list as well. If you like to get a list, write to me or visit me on Hood or on eBay. And of course, I'm still searching for model cars, mainly in 1 to 87. There's especially what I just remember is that I'm also looking for a kit called the Glass Car. It's made in the 40s. It's a car of it's made like a Viking model, but it isn't. And these models I'm looking for as well. Okay, that's it.
Thanks so much, Robert. One quick question maybe, but also conscious of time as well, if there's a quick question now.
Yeah, Robert, fascinating. I mean, are Viking and Herpa still manufacturing and releasing at the same sort of pace, or has the new market dropped as well as the second-hand market or the collect market?
No, Viking and Herpa are producing as well in Germany, and Viking is producing in Poland and in China. and in Germany, and Herper, I guess, in China and in Germany.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for the presentation, Robert. And let us know when you're in Ireland. You should join us for a drive and a coffee.
I will be in Ireland in the autumn for a conference.
Right.
Absolutely.
We have to meet.
Let's meet up then. Great. Well, thanks so much again. Let me introduce the next speaker. I think everybody probably knows David Thomas, our vice president. He's got some really cool stuff going on. I was quite impressed when I saw how he customizes some of the cars, changing the wheelbase even, and also building some older kits that I actually wasn't familiar with as well. And he's also got some really special models. So please, David, take it away.
Thank you, Wolfgang. Yeah, and I've probably gone a bit off topic as well on this as well, but not to worry. I'll get back to some of the sort of conversions of old toys and kit building. But I wanted to kick off inspired by John Timoney, actually, in terms of display. The last trip I had out to John's place, that was drummed in, and I realized I still had a load of stuff that I'd bought in the UK, put boxes in a bigger box, and put them away in a cupboard. And I guess probably most of us who are on the call fall into that trap. We buy something, we open it once, look at it, hopefully delighted with the purchase, and then we put it away again. So these boxes I brought back with me from the UK on my last trip with a car. What I haven't been able to follow John's advice on is a theme. So, you know, just briefly, if I look at the box on the left, I can see a Mercedes, a Citroen, a Jaguar, a Fiat, God knows what else. I think that's a BMW in there at the bottom as well. So I still just buy what I like. So I've never really got a theme. But please have a theme. I think it makes much more sense. The picture on the right shows the Mercedes racing transport, which I think I showed at the last session, and also an AC Cobra. So again, don't take my advice on themes, because I simply don't have one. However, I guess actually those who know me do know I have a thing about Mercedes. It's a little bit of my history, and I was obsessed with them before I worked for Mercedes very early in my career. And this unboxed one, which I bought, yeah, it must be probably 12 years ago now, is by a company called Auto Art. Funnily enough, the title of Wolfgang's full presentation, Auto Art. Well-established manufacturer. This is in 1/18, and it's just a brilliant model. And again, I'd forgotten how good it was, because characteristically I'd opened it once and then I put it away 12 years ago and not looked at it again. But it's now here in Dublin on display, and it's great. I mean, you can see great level of engine detail. Actually, the seats, they're not leather, but they feel like leather. It's got a textured carpet. It really is to a brilliant level of detail, and even has the fitted luggage in the trunk, which you can see there with straps and buckles attached. So it's and it kind of reminds me of, you know, why I spend money on this stuff. If you go on to the next one, Wolfgang, sorry, another Mercedes, guys, and this is by a company called Minichamps, which Robert has mentioned, and I think quite a few of you will know. Do lots of different scales. Again, this is a 1/18, and actually very similar in terms of the quality to the Merc 600. Very detailed engine. Obviously, everything opens on it. It's got little, I can't see them on here. It's got straps on the trunk lid and on the bonnet lid to actually, you know, that would be used on a race car to secure them properly. So it's a very, very high level of detail. And just really delighted I took them out. What I've also found is recently, and I think I mentioned this on the last call, there's really been an explosion in availability of models in both 1/18 and 1/43. You know, even when I bought those two Mercs, you know, 12 years ago, there simply wasn't the range available, and really quite, not obscure cars, but unusual subjects, ranges of colors, which is really quite exciting. I mean, this one again, a couple more Mercs, The BMW on the left is an E3 3-litre SI, which I owned way back when. And then it's a W116, which Tom, one of our members, has actually bought a very vivid green one of. They're great models in 1/18th, but it kind of led me to think about, well, what scale should we be collecting? What scale is the right one? Because I'd say traditionally 1/43 is very much the accepted scale, lots of availability on it. But then with 1/18th, you get just a greater level of detail. Perhaps you go to the next one, Wolfgang. And there we are. So here are the same models of the same car essentially in with the Merc 600 in 1/18th, and funny enough, the same manufacturer in 1/43. And the 1/43 one is very good. You know, it's to a good level of detail. You can see it's actually got steering wheels as well, which is impressive. But I suspect, you know, why a lot of us got into model cars was really just a segue from toy cars. And back in the 60s and early 70s, when I was a kid, you know, the cars you really wanted were the ones with opening doors and opening bonnets and opening boots. And the more features you had on it, the more excited you get. And ultimately, we're all big kids. So for me, part of the appeal of the 1/18th is that so much is opening on this, so much more detail. My question about the 1/43, the 1/18th that I showed you just previously, they're actually nothing opens on them. They're brilliant models. There's a great level of detail, but they are, I think the term is probably just display models or curbside models. So they don't have that same level of detail. And that then leads me a bit to, well, if you're sacrificing some of the opening features, do you really want to go to 1/18th or not? Because the big issue on 1/18th, and if you go another slide on, Wolfgang, is space. So that's one of the display cabinets I've got. On the left is in 1/43, or it's a mix of dinkies and corgis, and so roughly 1/43, 35 cars on one shelf. On the right, I've managed at a squeeze to get 7 cars on one shelf, and they're not exactly nicely displayed. It looks like it's a very crowded car park. And certainly, I think that there's a little bit of a trail-off now in terms of it's probably cemented my mind to do more 1/43 than 1/18th, because a lot of the stuff you buy will only be a curbside model. And actually, the curbside models in 1/43 are as good as the ones in 1/18th. I get 1/18th. I think it's a great scale, and a lot of the cars have got a wonderful feel to them because they're so big and chunky. That's, you know, and again, that gives them a great appeal as a collector, but they do take up a hell of a lot of space. And I think, John, you talked about it as well. And then one solution to the 1/18th, if you go forward a slide, is a bloody big car transporter. Again, some of us who grew up in the 60s and 70s will remember there was a Corgi Super Toys Ecuria Cos car transporter. But the CMR, who are a manufacturer who make resin, got a number of their models, have put it in 1/18th scale, and it is huge. That's a 12-inch or 30-centimeter ruler in front of the picture on the left, so you can see how big the thing is. Now, I've got a couple of car transporters, the Citroen Tissier, the Mercedes transporter I mentioned earlier, and it is a good way in some ways of doubling up the display space, because with this one you can put 3 cars on it. Now, strictly speaking, they should all be Ecuria Cos D-type Jaguars, which would kind of sort of defeat the purpose of using it to display more cars. But it is one way around it. But that is one big heavy model as well. If anything, I worry a little bit about the strength of the glass. Then finally, on 1/18th, before I sort of talk about kits and converting stuff, just a geeky thing that I first noticed, again, back when I was a kid looking at toy cars. Look at how the doors open when you do have a detailed model, and look at how it opens on your own car. So the picture on the left is how it should be. So the leading edge of the door goes inside the front wing. An awful lot of model cars with opening features, if you then look at the 904 Porsche, the leading edge comes outside the wing because the hinges are rather difficult to make in even in 1/18th scale. And you can see it with the two Renaults, both in 1/18th, the 8 Gordini on the left and 12 Gordini on the right. The 8 Gordini, the door opens correctly. The 12 Gordini, the door just pops out. I say, nobody else may be remotely interested in this stuff but me, but it's just something that strikes me as a sign of a good quality model. And the two Mercs that I showed at the beginning of my bit, the rear doors do it as well. So, you know, that's a sign of, I think, some attention to detail. And I think it's always worth looking at when you're looking at 143rd with opening features are fairly rare, but certainly 1/18th, you know, most of them have it. And both those models, both the 12 Gordini and the 904, are really good models, but they don't do that one thing that the obsessives like me look for. Okay, that's it on 1/18th scale. However, Robert's solution is the best one, and that's my very small collection of Vikings and Herpers, Robert. But they are very space efficient, I have to say, even though they're not on display. Okay, we had the question earlier on what's the most complex kit you've built. This is the most complex kit I haven't built. The couple on the left, one is a white metal from a firm called AMR, and below that is a resin kit from a firm called Starter. They're relatively simple. Yeah, they're a body, a base, interior wheels, some photo etch details as well, which you can see particularly on the white metal one on the top. You can see some of the photo etch pieces in the on the box lid on the Ferrari Testarossa, which are actually the side strakes for the doors and rear wing. So the ones on the left are relatively straightforward. The one on the right is a Boskia Porsche 356. I think I showed it on the last session. I still haven't built up the courage to actually make a start on it, and I think I need to do quite a few more of the ones on the left before I really get to grips with the one on the right. This industry has pretty much disappeared. I think I talked about it last time around. There was quite a cottage industry that had built up in the 80s into the early 90s around this, but that is very much been overtaken by the availability of just very, very high quality models, generally in resin, which, you know, mini chomps, CMR, CMC even, and the like. So they are available. You can certainly track them down on eBay at reasonable price. I mean, I picked up a starter model of a 964 a few months back, 20-25 euros. So they are available if you know what you're looking for. And they're relatively easy to build. As I say, start with the ones on the left, or certainly the resin model, which is really easy, and build up to see what's around. But I would say, you know, if you want a model of a particular car, you'll be able to track it down. You know, there's so much availability compared to even 10-15 years ago. You may need to do some work on it to get you to look how you want to, which we'll come to in a moment, and Wolfgang will go into a bit more detail on, but it's certainly there. Okay, if we go on one slide. This again I showed last time around, and this is some of the stuff that I have done in the past. The picture on the top left was from a visit I made to Monaco in 1982 as an impoverished student on a camping holiday. And instead of going to the Jacques Cousteau Undersea Museum that all my friends went to, I thought, I'm going to spend the day wandering around Monaco. I mean, how often do you get a chance to do that? Certainly as a then, what, 20-year-old. And the thing that really struck me was right out at the end of the breakwater was a boat called the Nabila, which was a fantastic looking boat, the best boat in the harbour. You looked at it and thought, nobody who is running this boat can have achieved this by being legal, honest, decent and truthful. And I found out afterwards it belonged to Adnan Khashoggi, who was an arms dealer. However, instead of the Rolls Royces and Ferraris, there was this parked at the on the quayside next to the boat, which was a Citroen CX Prestige. looks much like a normal Citroen CX, but it was actually about 4 inches longer. So I decided I needed to make it. And to make it, I had to take a Citroen CX estate and a Citroen CX saloon and cut the back off the saloon and the back off the estate and put the two together. So I ended up with a Citroen CX Prestige of the right wheelbase and the right rear door length, and then tried to make it as much look as much like Khashoggi's as I could. Again, probably nobody else would even care or notice that it's a scale 4 inches longer on the black one than it is on the bronze one. But like Augusto said, it gave me a huge feeling of satisfaction that I'd actually made it. So if nothing else, good for your own mental health to do it. The other ones, and I'm sorry, we return to the theme of Mercedes 600s on the next slide. Really a bit of an obsession. Again, way back before the advent of some of the manufacturers like Auto Art, all of the Mercedes-Benz 600s you could get for the long wheelbase one, which you kind of understand because they were quite sort of sexy with the long wheelbase and 7 seats and 6 doors and everything else. So I bought a number of dinky long wheelbase ones and took I guess it would be a scale about probably 50 centimeters or so out of the center section, and then put them back together and obviously painted them and added detail in terms of the glazing and window frames to try and move it a bit from being a toy into a model. And again, fun and satisfying thing to do. Obviously now I could just go off and buy the Auto Art model, which is a much better model than I was ever going to make. I would say as well, returning briefly to scale, 1/43 just suits me, is better for this sort of work. I think if you scale up to 1/18, it's very difficult to get the paint finish, and it's a big panel to try and get right in terms of filling and painting. But as I say, it's fun to do, and it's just good to sort of look at those sort of challenges. And the final one, which is a good lead into Wolfgang's, go on one slide, Wolfgang. This is making a model of your own car. This is making a model of my dad's car. This is the first car I remember as a kid. It's about a 1950 Austin A40 Devon. It was the most unreliable car that anybody, either in my family or anybody I know, ever owned. Any picture of the car has part of my dad's body emerging either from the bonnet or from underneath it. It was absolutely appalling. And rightly so, Dad eventually got rid of it and replaced it with a Morris Minor. I was hugely upset, and I actually wanted to keep it in the garden. And again, those who know me will realize I haven't actually changed much from the 6-year-old that was very upset at the departure of the green Austin Devon. However, in tribute to all that, I decided to try and make a model of it. And the basic toy is just a contemporary dinky toy, probably from the early 50s. But not a bad level of detail. Obviously, it doesn't have things like separate bumpers or separate grille or headlights, but the details there to paint. Change the wheels from contemporary plastic kit, put an interior in from the same kit, which again was a car of a similar era, and then used some plastic letters from the model shop for, they were basically used for model railways, just to add details like the registration number. But again, a fun and satisfying thing to do. And I think that's it.
Thank you so much, David. Have you got a question or two for David?
Hi, David.
Hey,
This question goes back to probably the first meeting we had.
Yeah.
I remember you showed a few estates, or you did some estate conversions too.
Yeah.
The question is this why you did land a Volvo, or was it Volvo that got you into doing estates? I always wondered.
It's a lovely question. I think it's just, I always had a thing about quirky cars, and the estates that I've done conversions of were in themselves conversions. Right. So cars like the Mercedes estates before Mercedes made their own T-Series were done either by German coach builders. There were a couple of UK coach builders, one called Crayford, who did exactly that and did what I, in my own funny way, did the same, is cut the back off an estate and put it on. So by a happy coincidence, I probably ended up with the most world-renowned manufacturer of estate cars.
Excellent, excellent. Because I was thinking, yeah, Volvo, the masters of estates as such.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we built them that way from the start, as opposed to
Yeah.
chop the back off a saloon.
Excellent. Thanks.
Good question.
Great. Thanks so much. Yeah, so last part is for me then. Maybe some people who have seen the presentation a year ago, fairly similar. If you're interested in building a scale model of your own car, maybe there's a few things here I can share with you that might be helpful as you maybe try and detail it. So here are 1 to 18 scale models of the Porsches I've owned so far in my life with matching luggage. So the first car was a 996, followed by a 964, which I think is still in the club today. And the middle one is the current one, a 73 911. So I'm going to talk a bit about more how I built these, the paint, and all the other details as well. Yeah, maybe giving you some ideas there to replicate. Choosing a scale, as the previous folks talked about as well, I guess I couldn't really make up my mind with the Porsches. So I go for 118 and 143 with the Porsches. All the other cars I owned in scale, I make in 143. There's just more selection. So if you're looking, likely you're going to find more in 143 than in 118. But of course, as some of the other guys mentioned, you just get more details from 118. And the 118 you see here in the front particularly is kind of important for me because I used to collect scale model Porsches in 118 when I was around 20 years old. I ran out of space and then I sold most of the cars and I kept this one. And I was delighted that this would be the actual car that I owned one day, which I really didn't know at the time when I bought the scale model. So you need a lot of details for this: badges, number plates, tax discs, and it's fairly simple. Basically, you just take pictures of all of those things you need as decals. You know, when you buy a scale model kit, you're getting these decal boards, right? And you can do that yourself as well with anything, just about anything. As you can see, the oil can here, or there's even a wine that's actually called air cooled. Obviously, I just had to buy that. And also the upholstery you can see in the middle of my 911. I just took a picture of it because it probably is better than try and paint this Pepita fabric model here. I just took pictures of it and I cut them out in Photoshop. And then it's a bit of calculating. So you take the measurements of, let's say, you know, the number plate, the actual size, and then you calculate the scale. In this case, it's 118 or 143. And there's different companies where you can just send these files to, and they print them on decal for you. This is the one I use. It's a German supplier, but if you Google, you'd find plenty of these companies who would basically print these for you to scale. So then the paint, that's actually fairly easy to get the right paint. Every car has a paint code. You could go to Halfords or any other shop, just get an aerosol, and you get the actual color of the car. It's kind of like the same. You paint the real car. Really thin coats is the way to go. And then there's a clear lacquer typically on top. Same thing as a real car. Probably rust protection is a little less important there because they're plastic and you're probably not going to drive them in the rain. But yeah, they certainly are well protected in case you ever would. For the interior, it's basic, you know, enamel paints you use for any scale models. You can buy these in any hobby shop, really. Try and get a good color match here. It's a bit of a guesstimate, I guess. I often just take, again, some pictures of, let's say, I don't know, the color of the seats maybe, and then try and see if I can find a match. Or you can even mix those. So that's actually not very difficult. So here's what the decals then look like when you get them printed. You would see this in scale model kits as well. The main difference here is it's actually your number plate and it's all your stuff. And you just soak them in water and you apply them on the car. On the right, you can see a 143 of my first Porsche 996 I had in Berlin, which had a lovely number plate that I really liked. And so, yeah, you can see the decal version of it there. And it actually works for upholstery quite okay. You could probably see here as well on the left, the Pepita upholstery there. That's for my current 911. I couldn't have painted it that way, I guess. So using a decal was the way to go. So there's a couple of conversions I've been doing. So on the left, you can see my Mini and 1-43. That originally came as a left-hand drive scale model. So I did a right-hand drive conversion, just taking the dashboard apart, using a little bit of that modeling body putty you could see here. It's called Plasto from Revell, but there is others as well available from different manufacturers to just make that dashboard look okay again. I did make the sunroof as well. This was not a sunroof initially, so I basically just saw that open. That was a bit nerve-wracking actually, but it ended up going okay. And so just to get the sunroof and the right-hand drive done as well on that scale model. On the right side, you see a 1/43 scale model of my first car, the Golf Mark II, which my brother passed on to me. And of course, he put proper boy racer speakers in the back. As you can see, it's a Mark II Golf, so that had to be done. And so I tried to replicate these huge speakers the car had in the back. And what I actually used for was parts I had of a warship model that was lying around. There were pieces of the rudder that I actually used. So sometimes you find these random parts and you feel like, yeah, you know, that could actually fit. That also means I'm keeping loads of these parts. And my wife always says, what do you do with all these parts? And this is one of those things where I kept it for 10 years and I finally need it. So you always want to be prepared, you know. Donor cars. So the 964 I made is basically 2 cars originally. I bought this 996 Target just for the wheels, because these are the wheels my 964 had. And obviously then a 964 model, and the merge went out okay. I mean, if they are same scale and they're high quality, they typically fit well together. Needs a bit of fiddling around sometimes as well, but that's typically how you then get to get the right wheels. And you know, there's so many different specs of a car. Even I'm thinking now, when I get another car, is there a scale model available with that spec? And if it's not, maybe I won't get it altogether. It's getting a bit out of control, I must confess, at this stage. Talking about getting out of control, I blame these things on the lockdown. So I thought, okay, well, let's maybe make a scale model of the oil can of my 911, or how about the warning triangle or the tool kit or the first aid kit? And how about, and on the bottom right, this phone that my 996 had, could I make that as well? Or that bag I have, as you can see here in the bottom middle there. So yeah, you can do anything really, right? I mean, again, you keep certain parts. For these oil cans, for example, I went on eBay and they actually found somebody who does 3D prints, that kind of stuff. And then again, you know, it's just a decal you put on it, you give it a bit of paint, and you have that as well, if that's what you want. And yeah, and then you can really detail things out and getting all the accessories right as well, if you like. So Lego is a whole different thing altogether. So that's my old 911 in Lego. It's not a kit available by Lego. So there's options if there's no kit available for you, how you can build that as well. So I found this page called rebrickable.com. Some fellow nerds there basically figure out ways how you can build Lego models of certain cars, planes, or just about anything. And as you can see here on the right side, that's an actual manual that looks like Lego, but it's not. It's just some guy who was passionate about this, who figured out how to build an early 911 in Lego. And you can basically buy that manual as a PDF for download, and you just print it out afterwards. And it gives you detailed instructions, you know, how many parts you need, what color and whatnot. And even the part number comes with it as well. That leads me to the part I like the least about this whole project, getting the bricks. I needed about 1,200 bricks for that Lego model. And there is a marketplace, bricklink.com. You could think of it as the eBay of Lego bricks, because the problem is Lego doesn't actually make all the bricks. So you're likely going to find the ones you need on that marketplace. Here's the catch. Not every seller has all the bricks you need. So I ended up, I kid you not, I think spending 10 hours getting all the bricks I needed. And at that point I thought, am I actually really going to build this model? Is it really worth it? But then of course I had the bricks, so I just had to go all the way. So then again, same detailing as you see with the other models I did with Lego. I got decals again for the usual stuff I mentioned before. You could see the upholstery as well. I had decals made for that as well, the radio. I did a bit of painting on the engine. I wanted to get that sort of green color that the 911E has. It's very characteristic. Found the right color, just painted those bricks, make that look a little bit better as well. And yeah, try and detail it out as much as possible, really. And it didn't have any window glass or anything, as it's not a real Lego kit. So I just cut a bit of plastic out that I had at home just to try and replicate the windows and glued them on. And yeah, hopefully been looking okay there. So yeah, and then really enjoy the scale models. On the other side is my Mini. That actually was a kit that was much easier to do. And they're both in the same scale typically. slot racing, a whole different thing altogether. So back at home, I grew up with Carrera. I actually didn't know Scalextrics until I moved to Ireland. I know it's what people use here. It's very similar. What they offer now is a digital slot racing track, and I think they're the only ones that do scale 1 to 24, if I'm not mistaken. I may be wrong. Anyway, that's my 911 as a slot racer, but I didn't actually buy it as a slot racer because it wasn't available. So I had to figure out, what are the donor cars for it? And it turns out, really random, that, you know, this car, a Simca 1000, I didn't even know the car, I must confess, has the same wheelbase and width as my early 911. So I bought that one, and I was basically calling different shops and asking them if they'd be happy enough to take wheelbase measurements for me, which was a bit of a random call, I guess, that they got. And one of them was actually happy to help me out. So I bought this one. Obviously, I needed the body. That's the body. That's a normal plastic scale modeling kit. That was never intended to be a slot racer, but that gets me the body and the interior and all the other things I needed. So, and there's a couple of more things you can do to modify it a bit more. You know, you get the headlights, the tail lights, and also the brake lights. And I got all that stuff as well, because I really wanted everything to work as well on the car. And again, you can see the company where I bought this from, but there's plenty other companies that sell you that. Depends very much on the system you're using. I'm using Carrera. If you're using Scalextrics, you need a different thing. It's usually not compatible, actually. And there's also analog slot racers out there. This is digital, so that means you need to convert them digitally with a digital decoder. But this company, for example, does that conversion, actually, if you don't want to do that conversion yourself. So yeah, the painting slightly different to painting the other cars, because, you know, slot racers, you kind of inevitably will crash at some point. So the decals could take damage. And what you do is basically here, once the, in this case, silver paint is on, you put the decals on, and then the clear lacquer comes on top of that. This is not what you would do with any other cars. And the clear lacquer you're using is for slot racers or for scale models, because it's not as aggressive as clear lacquer is that's used on real cars. Because if you use that clear lacquer on these decals, it would basically eat them up. There would be nothing left from them. So you do want to make sure they're protected, and you do want to make sure you use that Tamiya, for example, clear lacquer is the one I used, just to make sure that all looks good and it doesn't get damaged and is well protected. How on earth I'm going to put these two cars together? I actually wasn't quite sure at this stage when I took the picture. So here's what I've done. So I decided, okay, so I need to be able to access the car anytime, and I will. So these parts left from the original car on the left, you can see, I kept. And you can basically unscrew them and take them off. And then I decided I'm going to glue the body onto these two parts. So that way I can still remove it, take it off, and hopefully it fits well. And as you can see on the right picture here, the Simca on the very right has very different wheels and very different tires than what the 911 has. So I got different tires that look much more correct to the 911 spec. And from the kit that I had for the body, I actually had the Fuchs wheels. So I cut that piece out. You can see the whole Fuchs look there, and it actually fitted perfectly into that wheel. That was pure luck. I can't take any credit for it, but I was delighted it actually fitted in there as well. So then the interior is a bit dodgy because in a slot racer, there's not a lot of space. And the car this was based on was an analog slot racer. So it got a digital decoder added. There's a ton of pieces added, which makes even less space. So really, I had to cut bits and pieces here. I guess this is literally cutting corners here to actually fit something that looks a bit like an interior into that car. It's still a bit of a mix between the Simca dashboard and 911 parts, but yeah, we eventually kind of got there. Bit of soldering was required. I had a friend come over. He's got all the gear. I didn't actually have the gear at the time, just to get the lights work. Fairly easy, pluses and minors. You connect these two together, you make sure it works, and that's a fairly straightforward job there. And then really putting it together, I guess the moment of truth. This is when you find out if all the measurements you've taken actually were correct or not. Worked out okay. I was quite pleased that it all looks like one car and not two different cars all put together. So yeah, and then basically it's almost too good, so you don't want to race. It's my Mini on the right side as well, same kind of project. You're almost worried to race and crash, so they do get driven, but they probably are a bit kind of garage queens, and my other slot racers definitely see a bit more action than these two cars. All right. With that, that's it for all the presentations and slides we had. So I guess we can not just take more questions on just about anything we've discussed. I think I'm going to stop the recording now as well, because I think we have that as well, which we can